Okay, yeah, so day 3 wasn't all that great, to be honest. As you can see by my part 2, I eventually gave up and solved it in Python. I'm just going to show the Rexx for part 1 and part 2. Yeah, so I can watch this video back if I don't understand the code. I decided to mess up the input file. Do not care about all the different symbols because I had to keep track of all the symbols and didn't feel like doing that, so I'm just changing all the non-dots and non-numeric values to a hashtag sign. I'm going to iterate through every line. I'm going to build a number. I'm going to iterate through every character in that line. I'm going to take that into value C, and then if that's a number, I'm going to stick that onto the build number, and then eventually we'll hit a non-number or the end of the line. In that case, we're going to see if that one is connected to any symbol. We're going to see where we need to start, where it is, and our left bound and our right bound, and if that's too large, if we skip one beyond, we're gonna take it to the maximum. And then if there is a next line to look at, or a previous line, to be honest here, right? So if we're at the second line or onwards, we can look at the previous lines. So I'm gonna give a check ID of I-1. I'm gonna take those left and right bounds that are like one to the left and one to the right of that symbol, and I'm going to see in that substring that I define if I find a symbol, and if so, well, then we're good. If we are not at the last line, we can look at the next line over here. It's the same trick, taking that lower bound and left bound and right bound into account, finding the symbol. And we also have to look at the same line, scrolling this up, and then we're gonna look left or right, but it doesn't matter because our look string is positioned correctly, one to the left and one to the right of our record. Still debug information here, and then we're still gonna do a find on that symbol. And then if we find it, we're going to add that part number to a string, so that string part nums will just be a big concatenation of numbers. And then over here we show the numbers, and we will go through all the separate space separated numbers. This is Python's way of doing a split, I would say, and we get the answer. That worked. And for part 2, it didn't work. It did work for this, for our test input data. We're doing the same thing, but then keeping the stars, the asterisks, and changing everything else into a hashtag sign. It's all the same checkups, but just at the end, if we find the number, we're gonna keep track of what gear locations that number is connected to, and we're gonna store all those connections of part numbers with the location of the gear list. And then we can iterate through the gear list, get the location out, and see if there's precisely 2 part numbers connected, and then multiply them together and add them to our result. And it did not work, but it did work for the test data. So just to show over here, so we're finding that the part number 467 is connected to a gear at 2.5, and 114 is not connected to a gear. 35 is connected to the same gear. This one is connected to one gear, and 9.7 gear has 2 connections as well. So this gear has 2 and this gear has 2. We multiply these two, add them up, and it works. But then if we run the real data, it does not work. So yeah, I gave it one big. So this is what the leaderboard looks like, and maybe tomorrow we'll do another live stream.